This video will help you evaluate your sources you're looking for as you research your paper. There are a few different kinds of sources, as past videos have shown you. The first two we're going to look at are primary and secondary sources. Primary sources can come in two different forms. Written sources, which may be the actual document that's scanned into the computer, or it may be a typed version of the original document that still gives you the same information. Artifacts would be actual objects from the time period. You won't really be using these in your research right now. All of your primary sources should be written sources. When you're looking at primary sources, you always need to think about the content and the context of the source. When was it written? Is the cultural period important to what is being written? Does it change the meaning of what you're reading? Also, the reliability. Primary sources are often written by individuals that experienced the event. This may cause bias in their writing. What makes a primary source? Primary sources are often journals, political documents, anything that was written at the time of the event by someone who experienced it. Again, don't take information from primary sources at face value. Often the information is biased, as the person experiencing it may experience it differently than someone else. So you must always take that into consideration when quoting or using a primary source. Secondary sources can come in many different formats. Some of the most obvious are books, websites, journal articles. There are a number of different ways of writing a secondary source. Secondary sources are anything that uses primary sources in order to gather information, usually by a historian, and then put it together into the secondary source. Always make sure that you can see who the author is when using a secondary source and whether or not there is bias. Keep this in mind as you are reading through secondary sources. We'll get into that further as we move on. So this is two examples of primary sources. On the left, obviously you can see this is a pamphlet or flyer that would have been handed out at the actual time. So it is just a scanned version of the primary source. On the right-hand side, you see a letter that was typed on the computer. This is also a primary source, as it is transcribed from the original primary source, but still contains all the same information. These are two different ways you may encounter primary sources. Secondary sources. Here are things you need to think about when you are looking at secondary sources. How do you know if the source is reliable? How can you find out? Is it just popular reading or is it academic? The first thing you want to look at to find out if it is reliable is the author. If you don't know who the author is and is not a well-known author, feel free to pop their name into Google and see if they have any degrees or if they're well-known historians, so that you know if their information is reliable. It's as easy as Googling, so that's all you need to do in order to find out if an author is reliable. Usually, figuring out if something is popular reading or academic is easy enough. The title is often something that may show this. For example, you have a picture here on the left. Number one, it says it's a New York Times bestseller. New York Times bestsellers are often made for popular reading. It is written by a doctor, and if you Google the doctor's name, he may be a reliable source, but it's probably information meant for a popular crowd, not a medical or specific type of crowd. Journal articles. You should have used these in the past, probably this year in class. A journal is a scholarly or peer-reviewed article. Journals have collections of articles written by experts in academic or professional fields. Magazines and newspapers do not count as journal articles. These may be current events, they may be used in research, but they are not journals. Journals, for example, may have names such as the African Journal of History and Culture or the Journal of Agricultural Development and Economics. Journals often belong to universities or large organizations in which historians or researchers gather information and write scholarly articles for the journals. Why are journals helpful in research? Journals are often excellent for finding out what about your topic has already been studied. It may also help you find additional research on your topic. Often, the Works Cited page may point you to other sources that are relevant to your information. Always look through any cited work in a journal article or a book in order to help you find additional sources that may also cover the topic that you are researching. Web sources are often the most difficult to figure out reliability. Here are some rules to finding good web sources. Most universities, libraries, museums, governmental bodies, and research organizations have reliable websites. However, you should always look for the following things, even on these websites. Reliable sites are usually updated regularly and contain reliable links. If you run into a website where links aren't working or it's giving you some kind of error message, the website is probably not being kept up on a regular basis. This may mean that it's not reliable. Reliable websites will also not have advertisements or distracting visuals. You will also usually see an author, or the organization will let you know where the source information is coming from and who wrote it. If you cannot find an author or an organization on the website you are looking on, it's probably not a reliable source. If you can't find it on the page you are on, often websites have a button that says About Us or More Information, which may give you the information that you're looking for. So when looking at websites, always make sure you can find the author. If you can find the author, make sure to Google search the author's name in order to see if he is reliable, similar to what you would do with a book source, as discussed previously. Does the information you find through the Google search make you believe the person may be giving reliable information? If it does, the source may be a good one. Always check and make sure your source is the most recent version. Information changes. This is why it's important that your website have a date. If it is a current event, but there's no date, it may just say current event, and it may have happened a few years ago. It's always important to see if information has changed from the information given on the website. Basically, when working with all sources, including websites, you always want to make sure if there's any reason you do not think your source is reliable, it's best not to use it. Make sure to search around the internet to check for reliability. If you have any question, ask a teacher, but you should check on your own first. We will not do the work for you. Good luck with your research.